Well, I think we can get started. First of all, I just wanted to welcome everyone to our third official wellness webinar. And tonight we have with us Natalie Reimer Anderson, and it's actually her birthday today. And it kind of speaks of what type of person that she is, that even though it's her birthday, she's giving us a gift with this webinar. So I'm really excited to be a part of this, and pumped to hear what Natalie is going to teach us today. Quick background: Natalie is a self-love coach and expert. She's a former professional athlete and high school teacher. She's coached in fitness and nutrition, and I think she discovered early on that a lot of the limitations that people face have very little to do with the plan that they're following, and it has to do with a lot of their own personal boundaries and the thoughts and the dialogue that they're having inside of them. And upon realizing that, she'll tell the story maybe better than I will, or more clearly, but she made a shift into the self-love coaching industry, and she cured herself first. She overcame some difficulties, and she's cured thousands of other people. She's pretty much world renowned for her signature style of coaching. And it's important for us to understand that, a lot of times myself included, or especially me, I've been known to, kind of sabotage my own efforts. And by having the right thoughts and understanding how to reprogram or rewire the way that you think, we can overcome a lot of our biggest hurdles. And I'm really excited to listen to what Natalie has to say tonight. And I hope that you guys can, take some notes and apply this in your personal lives, or if you're a coach, with your clients, or with some of your relationships. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Natalie, and we'll go from there. Thank you, Nat.
Wow, thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Grant. Appreciate it so much. And I sure hope I tell my story better, but I have to say that was a brilliant introduction of all the ones I've had. There's some real meat to that one, so I appreciate it. Now, it is my birthday today. And I was saying to Grant earlier that it actually feels to me like this is a gift for me to be able to be here. It's a gift because I know exactly what I'm on this planet to do, and it is to share the healing power of self-love. And like Grant was mentioning, I personally have overcome a lot in order to be sitting before you today. Very, humble beginnings, but very similar in that, really, really in touch with my physicality as a performer, former professional athlete. But I just want to get into, like Grant talked a little bit about the resume, the things that, we put behind our name. And one of the things that I know that I have, that is my truth that I stand in, is that I know now that I am so much more than all of the trophies and all of the titles and all of the things that I accumulated in life. And that it took for me to become very, very ill and to get to that place where I actually felt like my body was betraying me and wasn't listening to what I wanted it to do, that I had a moment where I had to come to the understanding that it's all for naught if you don't love yourself. So now I know that I am not numbers on a scale, and I am not the trophies, and I'm not the awards, and I am not any of those titles. I am a divine being having a human experience. And I've come to know that I am capable of great healing, and so are you. And that I am an amalgamation of all the thoughts and beliefs that I have about myself and all the experiences that have shaped me. And I know that I'm an amalgamation or a community of trillions of cells which are listening to and responding to every word and thought and belief that I have about myself. And I now know that I am enough, and I now know that I am worthy, and I know who I am, and I know how I serve here. So this day being my birthday is just another cherry on top of the ice cream sundae that, I get to do this with my life. So I'm so honored to be here and to be able to speak to you. And thank you all for coming and listening. So all of the things that I said, that I have this realization, sort of this awakening of what I am and what we all are, it wasn't always this way. About 15 years ago, I was sick. I was 90 pounds heavier. I was in a very deep depression. I had just had my second baby, and I was really only able to get out of bed out of duty to those children. I felt like I was dying, and it was pretty extreme. My hair was falling out, and yet something in me wouldn't accept the notion that I was sick. I was suffering from an undiagnosed autoimmune condition that would end up nearly killing me. But it was through a series of synchronistic events that I ended up in the office of an intuitive medical doctor out in LA. I have two really dear friends, and they knew that I was not well. And so they sort of staged an intervention. And so I arrived at my friend's place in LA, and they sat me down on the couch and they said, listen, we need to get you in to see this doctor. This is our plan. You're going to piggyback on, this is my sister-in-law, you're going to piggyback on her appointment, because the lineup to get in to see him is like thousands of people long. And I felt like, there was a pilot light in me that was nearly out, but something was still alive. And I was kind of like, okay, may as well, like, what do we have to lose, right? So the next morning we show up at his office, and he thinks it's really strange that my sister-in-law would have me in the meeting with her, or in the appointment. And she said, he'll take one look at you and he'll know what's wrong, because he's an intuitive, so he can kind of read the energy and get a really good assessment of what's happening within. And he did. He took one look at me and he said, I know what's wrong with you. And I was still at that point where I was in denial that anything was wrong. And I just said, I was kind of mildly offended. And he said, you're holding on to toxic shame and guilt, and it's affecting your thyroid gland, which sits right here in the throat chakra. And he said, you've been suppressing your voice for so long and believing that you have nothing important to say, that you've locked that energy down, and it's killing you. And so he looked at me and he said, I know you're going back to Canada tomorrow, but can you be here at 6 a.m.? So in that moment, he suggested, he opened his clinic up early for me, right? In my mind, I was just some, person from Winnipeg, some mom from Winnipeg. And the fact that, he looked at me with that compassion ignited that pilot light in me, and I felt hope for the first time in years. And I remember the next morning I was standing in the door waiting for it to open. I had beat him to the clinic. I was so ready to know what was in store for me. And he sat me down, and the one question that he asked me is, Natalie, do you love yourself? And I remember it so vividly. I burst into tears because I knew that the answer was no. But in that moment, I also recognized that changing my answer to that question was going to be what transformed my life. That question in itself was the start. It was the pivot point of my transformation. So for the next 9-ish months, I continued to go back and forth to LA, and I was treated for all kinds of things that were happening at the cellular level. But most importantly, we started looking at what my early childhood program core beliefs around my value as a human were. And we started excavating down deep into those really deep layers of subconscious belief that we don't even know that we're living from, that were installed as children, that we're living from as adults. So through my sports career, you know, my answer to everything was just work harder, right? Like I was a small, really small volleyball player in like a land of giants. And so my success was always just push harder, just work harder. So my idea was like, you know, it was very self-punishing, pushing myself beyond my limits, and always striving for, you know, this idea of like never being good enough and outsourcing my love and approval to, you know, my win-loss ratio or my kill statistics, right? So I had reduced myself in essence to numbers again. And my value was placed in like how I could manipulate a ball. And once I started to look at, you know, how I had created that for myself, I had commoditized myself, I started to realize that that was part of the reason that I was becoming sick, is because I had reduced myself to that. I had made love something that had to be earned. And so along with all of the modalities that we did, heavy metal chelation, I don't want to make it sound like it was an easy thing. It was a lot of work. Obviously, nutritionally, I had to look at all of my food allergies and sensitivities. I had to heal and seal my gut lining. You know, I had to really go back to sort of an ancestral way of eating. I had to address exercise in a whole different way than I had my entire life, which I know is the same boat that a lot of people on the call are in. Is just looking at our bodies as this incredible physical organism, this collection of these trillions of cells that's listening not only to what we do, but listening to what we believe about ourselves and what we say about ourselves and what we think about ourselves. So while I address the cellular level of the nutrition and the detox, I also had to look deeply at the self-worth piece. And that is the missing piece of the entire puzzle that transformed my life. Because, you know, the science behind self-love it's emerging. Let's put it that way. It's emerging. And I feel like we are at a crossroads right now with what we understand about the cell and how it is affected by our perception of ourselves and our perception of our place in the world. So one of the things that I do that I think maybe differentiates me from sort of the, you know, that sort of Stuart Smalley type, I am good enough, that's all great. And the whole face masks and bubble baths, it's absolutely essential. It is part of self-care. And that is part of under the umbrella of self-love. But to me, self-love is about getting radically honest with yourself, challenging those beliefs that you've had that you didn't even know you had because they were installed so early. Every day, deciding that you're going to believe something new until you wire that into your circuitry, into your neural circuitry. So my more science-based approach has become incredibly effective, and it's really drawn a lot of people to me. So what I want to talk a little bit with you about are some of those things, and then at the end, for the last few minutes, I'm going to teach you one of those processes that you can start today to rewire the neurocircuitry of your brain. So a lot of people, when they hear, you know, I think I was probably one of the early people, like this is 15 years ago, calling myself a self-love coach. I was mocked and ridiculed for it. You know, people came up with all kinds of things like that it was some kind of like a sexual thing, or that it was like people made fun. So it really required me to, you know, stand in my truth of, I know that this is the missing piece of the whole puzzle for so many people, you know, And then I started to look at, no, I will show you why. Here's the science behind it. So this is some of the things that are out there now and that I've compiled for you. So self-love is not hokey, and here's why. Self-love is all about chemistry, specifically the neurochemistry of the brain. So when we have really good and positive thoughts about us, about ourselves, we release neurochemicals. You've heard of many of them, like serotonin, dopamine. There's other ones like cholesterol, cortisol, adrenaline, noradrenaline, epinephrine. There's many of them. So that when you think positive thoughts and you begin to love yourself, you release neurochemicals that cascade. So the release cascades down and it bathes your entire cellular structure. All trillion of those cells have receptor sites for these feeling chemicals. Okay, so your chemicals, your feelings are actually chemicals. So when you have these chemicals of stress caused by, you know, always beating yourself up, which I was doing for years and years as an athlete, and you know, you create an addiction, right? So that receptor site is really ready for the cortisol. It's really ready for the adrenaline. I had, you know, I pretty much used up all my adrenaline. And so when it doesn't get what it wants, it kind of feels uncomfortable because it's like a little mini addiction, right? So it takes time and it's uncomfortable to try to get yourself into a place where you're comfortable with the feel-good chemicals. But once you are, then that's what the cells are looking for. That's what those receptor sites want. And so cultivating states of loving yourself and being deliberate about it at the start begins this transformation alchemically in your body, where suddenly you're craving the good feelings. So you do those things that make you feel good, like the endorphins from exercise, right? Or the pride. I would say that's dopamine from like finishing something, a really important task or achieving a goal that you're excited about. So it's not hokey, it's chemistry, okay? Another thing that's happening in your body at the cellular level is something called epigenetics. And since the early 90s, when we unlocked the human genome, we learned that we have a genotype and a phenotype. So that is to say that there's 80% of your body's genes are actually completely controlled by your environment, not by your heredity. So the gene theory of disease is obsolete. They aren't teaching this yet in textbooks. Like some people are catching on with this, especially cellular biologists, that are showing us that you may have inherited your grandma's blue eyes, but you do not have to inherit her diabetes. That is a choice. That is based on all the choices that you make. And to some people that feels very daunting, but if you look at it, we're at a time in our evolution of humanity that we can look and say, I actually have control over the trajectory of my life and health. And so bravo to all of you, you know, Team GFIT members and to all of you coaches who really understand the importance of this fundamental thing that, you know, taking care of yourselves, taking care of the environment. And when they say the environment, we're not talking about nature. They're talking about anything that the cell is influenced by, which includes your thoughts about yourself and your beliefs about yourself. These things can transform your total health picture. So if you imagine that there's 100 light switches on this wall behind me, you have the power in you to turn on or off the ones that you want for 80 of those. There's only 20 of them that are fixed in place. 20 of them said, this is how tall you're going to be. This is what color your hair will be. Those things that are very not, that you can't really transform. But you do not have to suffer from the diseases that are caused by our choices and our environment. So another thing that is fascinating about the cell and how it is affected by self-love is this idea of us. We are electromagnetic beings, okay? So emotions are energy in motion. So we need to be able to experience and express emotion. That's not always favorable in a lot of, or especially in our Western culture. You know, we usually, especially with males, we shut down their ability to emote really early, and then it comes out in misdirected ways often as they get older. With women, you know, we call them hysterical or whatever when they're expressing emotion. But the truth is that if emotion is allowed to be expressed healthily and directed in the proper way, then it doesn't need to come out in ways that society rules as unacceptable. So because we're electromagnetic beings and we need to have a constant discharge of that, exercise is a great way to do that. Dance, laughter, orgasms, all of these are great ways to help the electrical conductivity of the body to move, right? So that you can experience more fluidity within the body. When we have a negative emotion that we're not allowed to express, it gets stuck in the tissue. So there's a famous saying that the issue is in the tissue. And so in my case, my weak point, right, the weak link in my chain was my thyroid gland, which sits right here. Well, it's the master regulator of the metabolism. So essentially, you know, my weight gain and my inability to lose it, it's the thermostat. So my always being cold, the hair falling out, it's because the body is kind of like in a stress mode. So it's saying, hey, hold on to this. And then, you know, hair and nails and things like that, or extremities, they're of the least concern. So when I began to emote again and allow myself the opportunity to really feel those emotions and allow them to pass through my body, my thyroid, it's almost like I used to get a big lump in my throat. Like things like this would terrify me to have to speak in front of people. And now it's like there's the channel, this chakra, this energy system has opened up so much because I gave myself permission to feel, gave myself permission to have those emotions. So it's not, you know, that sort of just stuff those, suppress those emotions. It catches up with us. It catches up with every human because that's how we're wired. So we need to cultivate those states of allowing ourselves permission to release that energy however it happens. If you need to go out in a field and yell your head off, I've done that. It's super therapeutic. I recommend it. Dance, you know, things where you can really feel the energy of your body moving. That is scientific, but it is also how we create greater self-love and heal our bodies in that way. So you've probably heard of this because you're working with nutrition currently and with nutritionists, of the gut-brain axis. So the gut microbiome, so essentially our whole body is an ecosystem, and the gut is intimately connected and always communicating through the vagal nerve to the brain. They say that the gut is a second brain. So eating healthy foods, having a healthy gut, probiotic rich foods, caring for yourself, taking the time to pause before you eat and really giving gratitude. Every culture does it in their own way, but if we can bring that back, we literally transmute the energy of our body. And not only that, because of everything's quantum, right? This is all just particles. This table is made up of the same thing as me, just in different frequencies. You transmute the energy of the food that you're going to take in and you receive it differently. So another great practice that actually scientifically shows that people that have higher levels of gratitude are healthier. And when you have gratitude for the food you're eating, you put your system into a de-stressed mode, so a very relaxed state. Well, here's the thing about the gut. It cannot digest when it's stressed. So you need to be in rest and digest mode to be able to take that in. So just relaxing, telling yourself you're safe, right? We need to repeat that message that you're good enough, right? Just letting your body calm down and get into that state where you can actually receive that food And then it's the more, you have to eat a lot less when you're eating nutritionally dense and when your body's actually capable of absorbing the food that you're eating. And then another point, it takes about, well, we know it takes 9-ish, 10 months to grow a baby, but it also takes mainly about 9 months to a year, and then some things like the bones, a couple of years, to replicate your body entirely. By the end of the weekend, you guys will have new corneas, okay? You're constantly shedding the outer layers of your skin. So what I think that I did to heal myself was as my cells were turning over and as I was giving them these new chemicals and telling them these new messages, I left my disease in the old body. So with each, your cells turn over rapidly, each time that happened, they were getting a new message. So the old cells, the process of it's programmed cell death. The cells die, but they create new ones. Those new cells grew in healthier simply because of the message that I was giving them, is that I was worthy, that I was worthy of great health, that I didn't have to earn love and approval anymore, that I was, enough just as I am. And then the last one, and maybe the most important one, and the one that you can definitely start today, is looking at those belief systems that you have. The thing about beliefs is, just like with that gene theory, right? Beliefs are actually just theories. We believe them, and usually we adopted those beliefs or inherited those beliefs in childhood. And we never challenge things when we're kids, right? We usually just believe everything that adults tell us, or we create meaning based on a lot of misinformation, right? Because we're only kids. So most of your beliefs were installed before you reached the age of 7. Everything that you were going to believe about the world and everything that you were going to believe about yourself. That's how important those first 7 years are. Somewhat between 7 and 14, and then a little tiny bit from 14 to 21. But after 21, unless you do this kind of work, you will be living off the beliefs of a 7-year-old, that a 7-year-old chose with only the information that they had accessible to them at the time. So keeping that in mind, we know beliefs are choices. You can choose to believe something, or you can choose to unbelieve it and believe something new. That literally the scientific process, right? When new evidence is presented, you can stop believing that old story about not being good enough, and you can interrupt it and say, you know what, I'd rather believe something else, because a belief is a choice. So the other thing about beliefs, and then I'll get into the process, is beliefs are foundational to everything, right? What you believe about yourself is what you create, and here's how that happens. So you forge those neural pathways in the brain because you keep believing this and you keep believing this, and it, like a record, stuck on a song. I dated myself there, I think, a little bit, but we used to have these things called records. I guess they're coming back, but they rotate around, and it gets that looping pattern that gets so deeply ingrained that you've created a neural pathway that's really hard to take the needle off and start a new song, okay? But it is possible, and it is possible with practice. And that's part of the reason why different cultures use things like mantras, or affirmations are a really big thing. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I hate that stuff, but it works. It really does work. It's a powerful tool, and there's a reason that all of these different cultures are converging now with these different methods that they've used for years, for centuries even, to rewrite the circuitry of the brain. So if we don't ever challenge those redundant thought patterns, we wake up in our 30s and our 40s, and we realize that we've been living this belief into being, that we actually created our reality around it. Because what you believe is what informs your decisions, so your actions. So you You only act based on what you believe. And then those actions have some kind of a consequence, right? They have a reaction. And that reaction and how you respond to it usually makes you go, oh, wow, that reinforced my belief even more. Yeah, see, I am no good. See, that person rejected me. Therefore, all my beliefs about myself being unworthy are true. Okay. And then we just keep that looping pattern going again and again. So this is how you stop that pattern, right? So when I talked earlier about that idea of excavating down into those deep layers, it is a process, and it's like peeling an onion. You'll make a breakthrough, and then you'll find a new layer, right? It's like, I mean, there's so many beliefs that we have, and they have like different subtle nuances. And I still do this work myself today, especially if I'm triggered by something and it disrupts my peace. Then that's a signal to me. Like I trust my triggers, because here's what triggers are. They are a signal to us that there's something within us that is asking for attention to healing. It's never about the person that triggered you. You know, they're responsible for their behavior. Absolutely. It's not to condone their behavior, but it's to say you can't change them, but you can change you. Not to spiritual bypass and say, I'm going to just pretend it's okay. But what in you was susceptible to their behavior? Okay. So the method, I call it chase, challenge, choose, change. Okay. Just so it's easy to remember. Chase, challenge, choose, change. So the chase part, when a trigger comes up or something disrupts your peace, or you're like, oh, why am I feeling so crappy right now? Like, you know those feelings when you just feel yucky. Like maybe you were on Instagram and you saw all these people that are having fun, and you know, and it triggers something in you. Okay. So what you want to do is you want to chase what is underneath it. It's not about that person having fun, right? It's never about the other person, because you can't do anything about them, but this is what you can control. So you go into, what is this trigger wanting to bring my attention to within me, right? And ego will have it, the reason it's called chase is this ego will have it go back down in under the surface so that you can't pinpoint it. Because ego's whole job is to keep us static and safe and not to grow beyond where we are now, okay? So it'll go back down into the subconscious. So you want to dig for it. What is that feeling? Where did that feeling come from? Where did it get installed? What does this remind me of? Okay. So I'm going to use an example so that you can understand it. So when I get cut off in traffic, like typically, you know, it's irritating, but if you hold on to that feeling for more than, it's said that it's 17 seconds, then it gets downloaded into your system. Okay. Then you're actually dealing with it on a physical level rather than just like water off a duck's back. Okay. So just be aware of that. If you can't let something go, it's a trigger asking for your attention to healing. So I get cut off in traffic, right? I'm standing in the middle and I actually want to do a U-turn. So it's my right of way, and then someone turns right and we almost get in an accident and they give me a dirty look and flip me the bird. Okay. So then I'm livid because it's like, yeah, it's my right of way. And I couldn't let it go. Okay. So this is an example, but I know that people can relate to this. So all the way to work, I'm still furious. I'm still angry, right? That, you know, that's not normal. Okay. We should be able to let those things go, and we should be able to get right back into that homeostasis of that place of peace. Okay. That was not about that incident. That was about something that triggered me. So there you go. That's your first clue. So you want to challenge it. So the first thing, so what is the belief underneath it? The belief underneath it for me is I'd seen that look before of someone getting mad at me for something they did. So shifting the blame onto me. Okay. And again, I wanted to make it all about that other guy, but it was actually like, no, why am I so upset about someone shifting the blame onto me? And then I think about it a little bit more. It's like, oh, because it feels unjust. Well, why does it feel unjust? Well, because they did something wrong, not me. I'm not wrong. I wasn't wrong. Okay, what is that feeling coming from? That's coming from my own sense of not being enough. That somebody would blame something on me, but and the little girl in me saying, but I am enough. I am enough. Okay, maybe am I not enough? Right? So it triggered that deep program of feeling like I'm not worthy, and that, you know, I'm somebody's, like, they can just blame me for everything. Okay, but it's not even about the blame. It's not about the other person, because that would not even affect me if I truly stood in my enoughness, in my worthiness. It would be, oh, that person is an idiot. And then it's end of story, right? Move on, right? So the challenge part. So now I figured out, I excavated down to those layers to figure out what is that core belief that got triggered. And now I have to challenge that belief. So you say, is it true? Is this true that I'm not enough? Is it true that people blame me for everything, right? My victim mentality of, oh, I always get blamed for everything, right? Well, that's a holdover from my childhood, having 2 older brothers, right? So you uncover these deep-rooted subliminal subconscious core programs that are affecting your adult life now. And the beauty of it is that you can let them go when you identify them. So you find that, you chase it, then you challenge it. No, it's not true that I'm not enough. But my whole life, or our whole life, like a bad detective, all we're doing is collecting evidence to prove our beliefs true, okay? Which is unscientific. So essentially, you have a theory about yourself, I'm not enough, or I'm unworthy, or I'm unlovable, or people abandon me. Okay, these are common ones that come up. And you install that belief as a child, and then for the rest of your life, something called confirmation bias kicks in. And like a bad detective, you're searching the whole world to prove that you're not enough. Oh, yeah, see, I got passed over for the team. I got picked last for kickball. I'm not enough. Person didn't save me a seat on the bus. I'm not enough. Then these kid dilemmas turn into grown-up dilemmas. Oh, she doesn't want to date me. I must not be good enough. Oh, I didn't get, you know, that scholarship. Oh, I'm definitely not good enough, right? We don't overtly say these things like I am for the sake of illustration, but this is the script that's running in those neural circuits over and over and over again. And unless you hack it, it's going to control your life. But now you know. So the chase, and then you challenge it. It is not true. And then you choose, what would you rather believe, right? So if beliefs are choices, like you can choose one day to be an atheist and you can choose the next day to believe in God, right? These are choices. So when new evidence presents itself, you can make a different choice. So the choose part is, what would you rather believe? And you actually have to say it. I am enough. I am worthy. I am lovable. Because here's what happens. When we do things in our minds, our brain is really good, so it's the ego again, at trapping that thought and pulling it down and hiding it from us. But when you hear your own voice speak and it goes in through your ear, it hits a different center in the brain, and that gets the new program installed differently, okay? So you have to say it out loud, and you want to feel for resonance, right? So if you say, I am enough, and it makes you, like, it's funny because it'll make you uncomfortable at first if it's the right one. If you're onto something, because of that, we talked about those receptors. If you're onto something, it'll feel really uncomfortable to say that out loud. That means you hit it. You found the one that is your thing. And that's the message that you want to install. So that record's been going around for a really long time. Every time you have to pick it up and you have to say, I am enough. Helps if you say it into the mirror and into your own eyes. But sometimes that it's going to skip back to the old song. So this is the process of the work. And eventually one day it gets left on that song, the I am enough song. And that is when you know that you have rewired your brain and you start living that as your truth and start making your decisions based on that belief. Those are exciting days. And you can do that with anything that comes up. And then the last one is the change part. Okay, so I talked a little bit about how to do the change, but this is the last part. When you decide which belief you want to have, I am enough, I'm smart, I am kind, I'm a good person, I am lovable, I'm worthy of love, whatever it is for you, okay? Then you need to begin to collect new evidence. So you're collecting evidence like a detective again, but the detective collects the evidence to prove that your new theory about yourself is true. And you act on that, and you can even use a journal to write down all of the times in the day where someone showed you evidence of your enoughness, okay? And then that collection of evidence mounts and mounts and mounts, and over time it undoes the old stuff that we believed. So the chase, challenge, choose, change method. It's a reworking of what a lot of people are doing out there that's similar to rewire the brain, including, you know, yogis, Judah Krishnamurti, people from ancient times that knew this kind of thing. That our brains are so, there's neuroplasticity and neurochemistry, right? So we can rewire, and our brains are malleable. We never used to believe that, but now science again is showing that our brains can be rewired based on what we choose to believe and the evidence that we choose to collect. So these are exciting times to be alive, because there's no other time where there's been this amazing convergence of spirituality and science, and it kind of meets in the science of self-love. Everything that you want for your life comes down to how you perceive yourself. Because if you don't perceive yourself as worthy of it, you ain't gonna get it. But as soon as you start recognizing that you're worthy of incredible health, that you're worthy of healing, that you're worthy of love, that you're worthy of an amazing life, the universe agrees with you if you really believe that, and it conspires with you to create what you want. But it has to come at that foundation of beliefs first. So remember that your cells are always listening. They're always waiting for the good chemicals and the good nutrition, right? And to love your cells is to love yourself, okay? The two are intimately connected. So for those of you that are on this journey of healing and getting well and getting fit, this is a crucial piece for you, for sure, on your path. I wanted to invite everybody on the call and everybody who watches this. I have a new program starting next week, Tuesday, and it is called Crave, and it really gets down to the you know, bare bones question, that foundational question of what do you truly crave? What do you truly desire for your life? And what are those things that are blocking you from having what you have wanted, okay? So we look at limiting beliefs. We look at the power of choice and all the micro choices that we make throughout our day. We look at removing blocks so that we can allow and attract abundance. So there's a big piece on how manifestation and how that works. We look at your value system, which as the firm foundation that you stand on, from which all your decisions will be made, and how to value yourself. And then the E in Crave stands for authentically expressing yourself in 2020. When I learned how to use my powerful voice and open up this energy center and not worry about what people thought and just like express my truth, that was when life transformed for me. So I consider it the privilege of my life to be able to do this kind of work for others and to guide them through the process that I went through in order to reclaim my health and my life. So I invite you to that. There's a discount code for GFIT fam. It is G-FIT 111. So that entitles you to $111 off of the price, which is already really low because I want to get as many people in it as possible to benefit from the work. It's a 6-week course. You can also find me, I think you probably will provide the link to my website. You can also find it on my website if you want to read more about it and are interested. And for those of you that maybe that doesn't appeal to or it feels like too much too fast, I would also like to offer you a free discovery call with me, simply to explore if there's something, some piece or some key that I hold that can turn and open a lock for you. Let me know. You can email me at hello@nataliereimeranderson.com, and I'd love to set that up for you guys for 2020. So thank you all so much, and thank you again, Grant and Team GFIT, for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Natalie. That was amazing. And thank you for the generous offers with the discount to Crave and also the free discovery call. That's amazing. You were very, very well spoken and intelligent, and it was a great webinar. And I wanted to open it up to the group. If anyone had any questions, there's a Q&A box on the bottom of the screen that any of you are welcome to type your questions in. But I did have one question for myself, just out of curiosity, and maybe some of the others in the call might, have a similar type of question. But what mine is that I know that you change and probably save a lot of lives through your coaching, and I was wondering if there is any one or two examples, maybe your favorite example or just one in particular that you might want to share where you've helped someone change their beliefs and how them applying those changes help them in their own life in some sort of way.
Well, it's hard to pick just one, but one person just did pop up just now. So I think that's my subconscious telling me this is the share. So I had a lovely, lovely lady. She begged me last year to come into the Crave program, to scholarship her in, which I do. I operate with a sliding scale. I try to give everybody that wants in the opportunity to be part of it. And for her, she had 5 kids. She's basically been a mom her entire life. She was not well. She was trying all these different things. And I'm like, okay, you're the scholarship. You're going to be in on it. She was so ready. It was beautiful. Like I talked about, I think like that point of readiness, right? Where people are like, let's do this. And it was one of the best decisions I made, because within the course of the 6-week program, she transformed the way that she had been perceiving herself. This method, looking at what those limiting beliefs were that she had about herself and who she was and what she could do because she was a mom of 5 kids. And she went from, and she still homeschools, but she went from being a full-time mom to now owning her own holistic health shop in a small rural town. So the belief systems that she had about like what she was capable of were already so tested, right? 'Cause she's got so many people that are in her care. But then, the amazing thing that she's like, no, I am worthy of pursuing my dreams. I don't have to just be this one role. I can actually be even more. And she's got this amazing, 1 year later, this amazing, successful niche little holistic health shop that is her dream come true. So to me, that's a really big one. And that might not be super about, you know, the physicality and the fitness part, but she is on a journey of reclaiming her wellness in that way too, for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. There's a couple of more questions here. The first one is from Jocelyn. What is one thing that we should do daily to start trying to practice self-love?
Hi, Jocelyn. That's a really great question. I really think it still comes down to being aware of what you're thinking and auditing what you're thinking and where is that belief coming from, because every thought is engendered or informed by a belief. So if it's something that you don't want to be thinking anymore, right? Just this redundant thought pattern, because by the age of 35, we have 95% every day the exact same thoughts. So these are just patterns. They're not original things, okay? So looking at those looping patterns, you know, our self-talk, right? Challenging that, looking at that and challenging it, because we do not do this as a culture. We don't stop and go, wait, what am I thinking? Why am I believing that? I don't have to. And you interrupt those thought patterns. If you start that today, it will be so transformative. A year from now, you'll be a changed person just by challenging your thoughts, replacing it with one that feels better. Feels awkward at first, but it gets easier and easier until all you think is, why wouldn't I? I'm worthy. Why can't I do a webinar in front of a bunch of people? Why wouldn't they want to hear what I have to say, right? All those things in our mind that hold us back. So that would be the one thing to start. And then second to that, or maybe tied with that, is starting a practice of gratitude. Because along with that confirmation bias I talked about, we also have a negativity bias, right? It's the ego again, keeping us safe, keeping us small. So we're always looking for what's wrong, right? Instead of what's right. So gratitude flips the script. It changes, it shifts the entire energy of your being when you look for what's right with your world and your life. And that's a gratitude practice of actually listing them. Best time to do that is right before bed with a pen and a paper. There's magic that happens when a human holds a pen. It's subconscious downloading. And that last 5 minutes before you go to bed it's a lucid time. It's like an ambrosial time where your subconscious and your conscious are meeting. And whatever you put on that paper that you're grateful for, the universe hears that and it sends you more of what you can be grateful for. It's a formula.
Awesome. I've got another question here. Do you work with a functional medical practitioner / nutritionist in adjacency to your program?
I'm glad that you asked that, because I didn't mention, I am a registered holistic nutritionist and I've been practicing nutrition for 15 years. So I did work at one time at a naturopathic clinic as their nutritionist. So if there is something that's beyond my scope, I will refer someone to get testing done. But I do something called a symptomatology, which was developed by doctors and naturopaths, and it really pinpoints, probably better than blood tests, at what the body is saying through symptoms, because the body speaks to us through symptoms. So if you have a specific condition, like this is what part of the reason why I went into nutrition, is because I knew that this was another part of healing my autoimmune condition. So I don't even know if I actually said that I am completely healed of an autoimmune condition, which allopathic medicine does not believe is possible. But I'm walking proof that you can heal an autoimmune condition, not just manage symptoms, that you can do too, but that you can reverse it to the point you have no antibodies. So if you have a specific condition, it would be worth jumping on a discovery call with me, and I can start to look at what your symptoms are saying and if I'm the right fit for you.
Thank you, Natalie. It looks like that's all the questions that we've had. And I've already gotten 4 text messages in the last couple minutes from people saying how awesome the webinar was and how much they loved it. So I just wanted to thank you on behalf of the whole team and for spending your birthday with us tonight. And I just wanted to say to everyone that is on the call, if you need any more information about Natalie, you can reach out to me directly through email, direct message, or text, and I would be glad to put you into contact with Natalie. And yeah, is there anything else that you'd like to say?
Well, I'm just so grateful. Thank you so much. It's been a sincere pleasure to be able to share my story.
Thank you, Natalie. Have a great night, and thanks again, everyone.